At 17, a young man receives a draft notice. There is no dramatic announcement. Just a piece of paper that quietly changes the direction of his entire life. In North Korea, military service has historically been a major part of life for young people. For many, joining the army is less a personal choice than an expected duty. He says goodbye to his family and leaves home. He does not yet know where he will serve, how long he will stay, or what the years ahead will demand. Soon, the civilian disappears beneath a military uniform. His name remains, but the institution begins defining him by his unit, rank, duties, and political record. Training begins with discipline. Long runs, repetitive drills, physical exercises, and weapons training become part of everyday life. For ordinary soldiers, conditions can be difficult. Cold facilities, limited supplies, exhausting schedules, and shortages have all been reported by people familiar with military life in North Korea. During early training, recruits may practice movements with training equipment before handling live ammunition. The lesson is simple: follow the movement exactly. Every movement has a correct way. Every order has a correct response. Mistakes are noticed quickly, and repetition turns commands into habits. But military training is only one part of the system. Political education is woven into military life, teaching soldiers what they are expected to believe and say. Lessons focus on the leadership, the state, military history, and ideological loyalty. Attendance and participation can become part of a soldier's record. Another unusual feature is the self-criticism meeting. Soldiers may be expected to discuss their own mistakes and shortcomings in front of others. The purpose goes beyond admitting mistakes. In a highly controlled environment, soldiers also learn to watch their words, observe others, and avoid behavior that could attract political attention. Paperwork becomes surprisingly important. Notes, evaluations, political observations, and records can follow a soldier throughout his military career. Even ammunition is carefully controlled. When live rounds are issued, soldiers and commanders must account for what was received, used, and returned. A missing round is not simply a small mistake. A discrepancy can trigger questions, investigations, and pressure on the people responsible. The young soldier gradually learns an important lesson. Surviving military life means understanding not only orders, but the system behind those orders. Years pass. The nervous recruit becomes an experienced soldier. He knows the routines, the rules, and the dangers of saying too much. Eventually, experience can bring promotion. But higher rank does not necessarily mean greater freedom. In many ways, it means greater responsibility. Now he must supervise others. He is responsible for training, discipline, equipment, reports, and the political behavior of the people under him. His desk fills with forms. Training results, equipment figures, personnel information, and political evaluations all become part of the job. And this is where a difficult problem appears. Military organizations need accurate information, but highly political systems can also create pressure to show that everything is going well. A unit may have fewer working vehicles than expected. Some equipment may need repairs. Training may not be completed exactly as planned. But the report traveling upward may still be expected to present a strong picture of readiness. That difference creates what officers may fear most, a gap between reality and the official story. So officers learn to speak carefully. They avoid dramatic criticism. They choose measured words that reveal problems without appearing politically disloyal. Being competent can help. But being politically safe can matter just as much. Standing out for the wrong reason can create unnecessary attention. A careless comment can become a problem. Something said casually may be written down, remembered, repeated, or interpreted differently later. Information itself is controlled. The higher a person rises, the more sensitive the information they handle, and the greater the consequences of mishandling it. For those who navigate the system successfully, promotions may continue. A soldier who once stood anonymously in formation can eventually become a senior officer. At senior levels, military knowledge matters. But so do relationships, political trust, reporting habits, and the ability to understand what superiors expect. The officer may therefore keep two mental pictures at once: what is actually happening in the field, and what the institution expects to hear. This does not always mean every number is deliberately false. Sometimes the pressure simply encourages optimistic language, delayed reporting, or careful presentation. In such an environment, everyone has an incentive to pass problems upward carefully. Each level may soften bad news before sending it higher. Over time, small differences can become a large institutional problem. The leadership may receive a picture that looks stronger than conditions on the ground. Then comes an inspection. Suddenly, the numbers on paper must match what inspectors can actually see. Vehicles are counted. Equipment is checked. Training records are compared. And one figure does not make sense. The officer is asked a simple question. Why does the official report say one thing while the evidence suggests another? Maybe the number changed. Maybe the reporting chain altered it. Maybe everyone simply wanted to show better readiness. But explaining the gap can be more dangerous than creating it. In a politically controlled institution, a reporting problem can quickly become a question of trust and loyalty. A career that took decades to build can suddenly stop. Rank, experience, and past achievements may no longer protect the officer. Punishment does not always arrive dramatically. Sometimes it looks like reassignment, loss of responsibility, reduced access, or simply being removed from the center of power. The most powerful punishment may be isolation. Information disappears. Meetings stop. Former colleagues become distant. After decades of service, the officer may suddenly find himself outside the system he spent his entire adult life serving. His journey reveals a difficult truth about highly controlled institutions. Technical ability alone is not enough. Success may depend on knowing when to speak, when to remain silent, how to document problems, and how to present information safely. For the individual soldier, this can mean years spent adapting to a system where personal identity becomes secondary to obedience, political conformity, and institutional expectations. From 17-year-old recruit to senior officer, the journey is not simply about weapons or battlefield courage. It is about surviving a powerful bureaucracy where every action can become part of a record. And perhaps that is the most revealing part of life inside the ranks. Sometimes the greatest challenge is not surviving the battlefield, but surviving the system itself.